Welcome to the Yes to Entrepreneurship podcast. So, real quick, before I jump into the conversation with this week's guest, I just want to let you know what this show's about. Really, this show is just about all the conversations we, entrepreneurs, those of us who are the why notters, have around entrepreneurship. It's the conversation that you don't typically hear because you just see those fun posts on Instagram and Facebook where we're hanging out on yachts or we're making a ton of money and driving these fancy cars, when reality is that's not real life. Real life is trying to figure out how you're going to pay bills, trying to figure out if you're going to make rent this month, trying to figure out if that new client really is going to help move you forward or if they're really going to bring you down. Really, anything goes in these conversations. And you, the listener, gets to eavesdrop in on these conversations that I'm having with fellow entrepreneurs. So grab your cup of coffee, grab your water, grab your tea, whatever it is that you enjoy, and a pen and paper because you're about to take some notes. Also, be sure to share this out. Oh, here comes my guest. Talk to you soon. Quick shout out to our sponsor, StupidEasy.com. StupidEasy.com is a new online course platform where you can easily upload and sell your online courses without having to be tech savvy and without them taking a cut of your sales. Discover more at StupidEasy.com, and we'll have a link in the show notes for you. All right, Jillian, so tell me a little bit about how you got started in entrepreneurship.
Yeah, so, I kind of stumbled my way into it. I called myself an accidental entrepreneur for the longest time just because it happened out of kind of a random comment that my dad had said. So in 2010, I moved to Bangladesh, and my whole intention was to get a job at the embassy, pay off my student loans. My parents were stationed there with the embassy, and so I thought, okay, I'm just going to go over there for a year or two, get some stuff figured out, let the economy in the U.S. pick back up. And when I got overseas, I bought my ticket and got there, and then they went on a hiring freeze. And so no one in the government was hiring. And I was like, oh my gosh, here I am, stuck in this third world country. What the heck do I do now?
Yeah.
And so I started baking just because I loved it and I had fun. And so, and my dad was on a diet, and he got really frustrated because there were constantly brownies and cookies and cupcakes in the house because I was testing out all these recipes and blogging, and he was just kind of like, what are you doing? Go get a job, right? But he made a comment why don't you find a way to get people to pay me for this? And I thought, oh, you think people would pay me for this? Oh, hey, what a novel idea. I could get people to pay me, and I would bring them delicious baked goods. And so this whole, I started a bakery, and it kind of turned into this cake and cupcake shop, and I was known as the cake lady in Dhaka for about 2 years. So from 2010 to 2012, I ran my own cake business, and it was not what I had originally set out to do. It didn't look like what I had originally wanted, but deep down inside, previously I wanted a cupcake shop. I just thought that would be the coolest thing ever. And so it just kind of showed me that sometimes we really do get what we want. It may not come in the same packaging that we're expecting. It might look a little bit different, but that's really what set me on the path to entrepreneurship was that one particular experience, because after that I kind of found my creativity, and I kind of dove into more of being the boss and getting to set my own schedule, and kind of having a lot of full creativity and a lot of direction. And I liked, even though I didn't really have employees, I liked kind of being that leader and being the face of the company. And so that's really what set me on the path. And so ever since then, my business has definitely shifted. I'm now business and marketing coach and a sales coach specifically. And so I've definitely gone a very different direction. And so it just depended on what phase of life you're in. And so that's been the biggest, I'd say, lesson for me that I've learned, is that it's okay for your business to go through different phases, to shape and mold and just change ever so slightly, kind of here and there over the years. Because I found that with my husband in the Marine Corps, we met in Bangladesh, and then we got married about a year and a half later. And it was something where, I really didn't want to be tied to a kitchen. I couldn't be tied to a facility or a brick and mortar store. I really wanted a laptop business that could go with me wherever I wanted.
Yeah.
And so I had to make that jump from like a product-based business and a food business into more coaching and social media. And so it was really kind of taking what I loved about the baking side of things and how could I turn that and really utilize what I had gained in those skills in this new way.
I love it. And you bring up a fantastic, you and Dad bring up a great point here is, why don't you find a way for people to pay you for it? And, that is such a great question and a great statement, right? Because as an entrepreneur, like there's so many things that we want to do and that we are doing. And especially when starting out, we do them for free. And we don't really think about why would anybody pay us for that? It's just something we like to do, or we're just good at it. So why would we get paid for it?
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I think one of your past guests I was just listening to that podcast with her, and she was talking about that same thing of how do you price your services and charge for something that you are good at and that comes naturally and easy. And that was definitely kind of a money block and a hurdle that I had to get over and work through. And it's definitely, a big thing I know for entrepreneurs, especially when it comes to their time, their services, their gifts and talents.
Yeah, definitely. And when you made the transition from being, the baker and being in the physical product area to the online, what kind of adjustments did you have to make mindset wise? Because it is different going from the tangible to just being online. How did that work?
Yeah, so I'd say the biggest thing that I realized was when I had a product-based business, I did not think I had any money blocks whatsoever. I remember listening to Denise Duffield Thomas and a couple other people, and I was like, I don't need this stuff. Very flippant about it, not me. And it wasn't until I shifted into doing social media marketing that it just kind of hit me like a sack of bricks, where one day I was like, holy shit, I have money blocks. Where did this come from? Out of nowhere. And I think part of it was more just being receptive to seeing that and to acknowledging it in myself. And that probably came through other self-development and really looking at a variety of different aspects when it comes to marketing, really reading a lot of books, taking courses and programs, and doing a lot of work on myself as not just kind of a marketing employee, but also as that CEO and that business builder. I felt like because I studied international relations and Russian in college, I really was playing this game of catch up. I had no clue what most business and marketing students probably know. And so everything that I've come to kind of realize has been very self-taught. And so I was very ashamed of that, I think. And so I felt like I had something to prove, because I didn't have that degree, I had to go out there and do all the courses and read all the books and, sign up for all the webinars and all the opt-ins. There was definitely that phase where I was opting in for everything from everyone.
Yep.
And you kind of go through that. And a lot of it was just soaking up like a sponge. And so there came a point too there where for me, I had to be in the mindset of I need to take what's useful for me now, but I can't listen to all of it. And I need to unsubscribe from certain people who are doing great things, but who aren't really feeding me and what I need to be focused on right now. And I need to trust myself that I'm making the right decisions. So there were quite a few mindset shifts that kind of came that, I had to really think I can't listen to everybody. And depending on what type of business I want and the business model, I need to be listening to certain people. And I probably shouldn't be listening to these guys over here, even though I absolutely adore them. They aren't really, their business model is different. So their whole marketing strategy is different. And it's not bad, but it's not if you're setting up a membership site, it's going to be different than if you're doing one-on-one or high-end coaching versus if you do a 12-month mastermind, or if you started in 2008 and you have this massive blogger following, or it's just very different based on the model I think that you choose. And so for me, I had to kind of go through and weed out things and just think about where am I right now and what's going to get me to that next step. And so it definitely helped me to prioritize, and then also to start to think of myself more as an expert. I'm not the ultimate end-all be-all knowledge of all things, as it relates to marketing or online marketing, but I can be a contributor, and I do know a lot more than most people or I know more than a certain set of people. See, well, who's going to pay me for this? Where do I find clients? Well, yeah, who do I want to work with? And that sort of thing.
Yeah, no, and you know what? It brings me back to when I first started as well, because that's exactly how it goes. I mean, I got a degree in communications, and I have the sales and marketing background, but it's still different what you learn. I mean, that's a great starting point, but it's still different what you learn in school versus in real life. And with technology changing so rapidly, you have to constantly have that personal development time to stay on top of things and to have a sense of what everyone else is doing. And then it's funny because we go so big in terms of, like you said, we opt into everything and we want to see what's going on. We want to hear what everyone's doing. But then there's that time and place where we got to say, okay, we've seen enough. We need to bring it back a little bit here and start really protecting our time and who we're going to focus in on and who's helping us get to our next level, our next step now, versus that's great and that's my big picture, but what am I going to do now? I refer to it as the BSQ method, think big, act small, move quickly. And so each of those stages, you have to figure out like who's going to be in that bubble for that moment with you, and then keep the other ones on the back burner, make a list and save it for later. But yeah, exactly. Dialing it back and really focusing on who you need to pay attention to right now. And like you said, being an expert. I love that you bring that up because I have this conversation all the time with people, and it's actually funny. I was on a webinar recently where somebody was talking about, calling yourself an expert, and asked that question, do you call yourself an expert? And typically, I think everyone has the same feeling around that word, is that it's hard for us to say, yes, I'm an expert, because we feel like it has such high powers that you have to know all the ins and the outs.
Yeah.
It's so weird, but it's one of those things that we're afraid to say that we're an expert. And, back at my old job when I was at Apple, I actually was called an expert because that was my job position. But when I'm out doing my consulting and everything, I don't say I'm an expert just because I just don't use that term. But on that webinar, it actually came naturally. And I was like, yes, I'm an expert. And I may not know everything, but I know the tools and the resources to get me to the next step and to get you to the next step. And that's all that matters, and it felt so comfortable and relieving to just say it naturally. And it sparked, other conversations with people. And it's true. We do need to be okay with calling ourselves an expert if we know what we're talking about and we're passionate about it and we know the right tools and resources to help us along the way.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, when you are targeting and attracting in the right type of clients as well, they're going to see you as that expert anyways. And so I think it goes hand in hand, right? We're going to feel like it when we have our niching down and we know who we're speaking to, what their problems are, what their desires are, where they want to be, and that we know that we can take them there. Then we know that we're an expert. We're not playing outside of our own little ball game here. We're very focused and specific with the problems we're solving, what kind of promises we're making. And I think the more that you can familiarize yourself with that, then the better you're going to be off and the easier time it is to call yourself an expert. Yeah.
Oh yeah, totally. And when it comes to the personal development time, because I'm huge on that, and no matter how busy we get, we all need to make sure that we make time for that personal development time, because again, things change, things are constantly evolving, our business is evolving, and other people's businesses are evolving, so we have to stay on top of that. What are you listening to, like podcasts? Are you still reading books? Like how do you spend your personal development time?
Yeah, so I kind of do a variety of things. So I still love podcasts, specifically while I'm driving or at the gym. I find it's just an easy way. One, it kind of distracts myself while I'm working out or doing something or driving. Like I just drove from Georgia up to Virginia. It's only like 9 hours, but it's still a lengthy time, right? So had a bunch of podcasts stored up and even downloaded some old ones that I had already listened to. But yeah, I find that podcasts for me are really great. There are a couple of people whose newsletters I will subscribe to and that I will read on a daily basis or a weekly basis. And those are specifically geared towards like kind of, one is copywriting, one is like marketing strategy, and one is mindset.
Nice.
And that's it. And I just picked one from each category that I really felt like either, these were all people that I had worked with in the past and that I wanted to stay connected to and would probably work with again in the future. And so I just really limited what I'm reading. But I do still read a few, I do read some other books as well. And it just depends on the timing. And my husband got out of the Marine Corps this summer, and so we've been in this big transition phase, and so since June we've kind of been in limbo. We've been living with his parents and then my sister, and then we're finally getting to move into our place, and so unfortunately I haven't been able to carry the books around with me like I would have liked. But I think that spending time is really great in that you get new ideas and it just sparks your creativity and you get exposed to new things and new ways of doing it. And I'm all about what's going to add more you and more personality and style to your business, but also what's going to make it easier. Like what can you streamline and cut out? Like I talk about leaning out your marketing. Like, can we just strip it down, cut it out, and just not do stuff and not feel guilty about it either? I'm a really big proponent of like, you don't have to even outsource stuff. Just don't do it. It's okay. And
I love it.
It's it's kind of going against this idea of I have to be everywhere all the time. And maybe there's a time and a place for that. But for me, I run myself ragged and I don't get anything done. And I end up feeling stressed and burnt out, and I think that's what we want to try to avoid. And so I'm definitely a big proponent of those kinds of philosophies, and I'm not afraid to like share it now. That's one thing I've done really, really well, is kind of stepped into my own and really stood up for what I believe in too, because then you find the more that you stand up and speak out for it, the more people are like, oh yes, amen, right? And they will be attracted to that naturally. And so it's a great way to then attract like-minded people who either you can collaborate with, or number two, who would make great clients.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I love the fact that you talk about leaning out the marketing and really what's going to add more of you to it, and be able to cut out the outsourcing, because that's a big thing right now. A lot of people, especially new entrepreneurs, will jump into the mix. They get their business idea, they start creating it, then they start pulling in clients, which they try to go for as many as possible because that's just our natural tendency. And they want to create everything, and then they realize that they're talking to nobody because they're talking to too many people. And then they're left trying to outsource all this work, but they haven't even figured out what systems they need to put into place to streamline it, to then see if they really do need to outsource or not. So then they're already wasting the money, and it's just this big headache. And I am all about downsizing and keeping it simple, and really I'm always constantly writing down, pen and paper. I got the big old sticky Post-its, like the huge ones.
Yeah.
And I just go to town with the markers, and I just start writing out. Like right now I have on there, every time I think that my website is quote done, because, a website's never done, but you're always fine tuning it. And I have listed, I'm like, okay, now that I feel comfortable enough with my web page, the home page, let me see, how can I make this easier? What am I missing? What needs to be more on the priority list here? You constantly are rediscovering what needs to be changed and what should be there that may be missed or whatever. So it's always, in a way, it could be kind of crazy because you're like, this is way too much and you shouldn't be thinking about it that much. But then at the same time, you're like, no, this is good because I'm helping my customers and potential customers have a better experience because I'm cutting out some of the work.
Right, exactly. You're making it super easy for them to get what they want to, and to navigate through content or your site, or even just to figure out who are you, what do you do, what do you offer, and exactly, making it so they don't have to jump through hoops. That's one of my biggest things, is when I see people who kind of they take that spray and pray methodology, and they're like, yes, I'm just going to send this out to the universe, and then people will magically find my website and magically click on the contact me page and magically know exactly what they want. And it's just what and I'm just thinking like, oh my gosh, like what world are you living in? And it's no fault of their own. And I try to help educate them, but yeah, we can't make people jump through hoops. We've got to make it super simple, super easy, one click, give them a button, don't make them type in a URL, like some very basic things. And, and there are times where I have to take that same approach to myself. And like you said, I'll take a look at my own website and be like, okay, am I making this easy? Is there a way for people to get in contact with me? Can they book a call? Do they know what my offerings are? No. Okay. Like if I don't have a services page up, if you don't know how I work, then that's a problem, right? So yeah, definitely. It's always good because we get sidetracked, and there's so much to do, and our minds wander. But I'm a big fan of sticky notes, and I keep multiple to-do lists, but I really try to keep them very focused. And I've tried kind of the Scrum model of like productivity and find that it works fairly well. But I try to just check off 3 things a day, and that's really it. I don't try to kill myself, like I'm not trying to do 10 things every day, and one of them being like a generic bland update website. It's a very specific like about page needs an opt-in at the bottom, or it's very detailed into what am I doing specifically, and I find that is much better in terms of actually getting things done versus these kind of random like update Facebook or whatever they might be.
I totally agree. I love the fact that you keep bringing up the power of 3 rule, because you are right there. That's what I do too. I might write down a lot of things on my, I have a paper planner as well as the digital planner, just to satisfy, the digital is the notification satisfaction, and then the written is, actually checking something off. And I always have like, what are my top 3 things I need to get done each day? If I can get those off the list, then I'm good. And I am okay with nothing else being done. If I get more, great, but those 3 are the main ones. And that really helps. And, I use Trello to really be my project manager. And it has been a life changer, lifesaver, I should say, for me, because I used them a long time ago, but that was before I had my business. And then I went away from them. And then finally I switched back to them recently again. And it just, the flow is so much better, because before I was going into so many different programs just because I would put ideas in one, and then I would do processes in another, and then I'd be in Google Drive. And I was just all over the place. And the way my brain thinks, like, I am quick. I am a mover and a shaker. And so I didn't want to waste that time. Where do I go? Like, I'd get the idea and then pause and like, okay, what program should I go to put this info? And it was driving me nuts. So I had to stop and figure out what system is going to work for me, and where can I start housing things so I can limit the programs I'm using and really dial it back, just like the email thing.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's a great point too, is like we can streamline our technology. We don't need to be using every service just because it's there. Like, let's get really smart and strategic, and things that we don't need or don't use often, like, let's let them go and be okay with it.
Oh yeah, and that's the thing I've actually started to implement myself. Every month, I try to make it a point to take a few minutes to look at my monthly services that I'm using and paying for, and dialing it back to see, can I get rid of this? I got about 4 on my list right now that I have question marks, because to be honest, I don't really need them all. And what am I using them for? Like, there was a time and a place for them, but now I feel like I don't really need it. So I can start dialing those out.
Right. Yeah,
and saving
definitely.
money.
Yeah, exactly. And increasing your profit each month. Yeah.
Because that's the biggest thing I think we all have issues with, especially when starting out, and why we go for so many clients is because in general, we think more clients equals more money, which equals a bigger paycheck, which equals paying off our bills. But at the same time, it doesn't, because more clients means more, I don't want to say problems, but more things come up, right? Because even if the client isn't a problem, it's the work that comes with that. And depending on how you price your services, that may or may not work for your situation. Therefore, then if you price too low and you have a ton of work from one client, then you're saying no to a potential client who would be paying you more for the same amount of work, if that makes sense. So basically, you have to get that under control at the beginning, because pricing is hard. And if you take on too many clients, then you don't have enough time to really work on your business and really do these things that we were talking about, like fine tuning and figuring out what's easier, personal development time. And then, years later, you're like, well, I had all these clients and it's been great, but what about my business? What is my business? Like, I've helped everyone else, but what about my business?
Yeah.
And I still can't pay my bills.
Yeah, right. Right. Well, we often get so wrapped up in, like, how am I going to find the clients? I need the clients. And we think that that's going to be the end all. And really, that's only that's not even half of it. That's just the first quarter. That's the first third. But you actually have to make those clients happy now.
Yep.
You want them to refer people. You want them to keep coming back for more. You want to maintain those relationships, because it's not just about single one-off transactions. It's about how can you develop that long-term relationship and keep going back and continuing that work and continuity. Plus, that's only one revenue stream, right? So it doesn't free up your time now. If you ever wanted to create a group program or a course or a membership site or some of these other things, it really kind of keeps you stuck in this business to where now you're the employee, right? You're not running a business. You maybe are doing the work that you love, but there's so many other aspects to it, to where we kind of fall back into this manager role or this, kind of employee role, and not actually kind of living the dream and the lifestyle that we want. And I know I found myself doing that as well. I didn't have the lifestyle that I wanted as an entrepreneur. I was working nights and weekends. I didn't want to take vacation. My husband was pissed off all the time because I didn't want to hang out with him because I had so many things to do. And, and rightly so, he should have been a little ticked off about it. And so I really had to take a hard look and redefine success on my own terms. And I think that's a big thing too, is that we get so caught up looking at what everybody else is doing. How much are they making? How many clients do they have? What are they? Oh, you're running Facebook ads. Oh my gosh, she has a new webinar. Oh, wait, nope, wait, she's got a new program. Oh, nope, I need to compete there. And and we don't actually think about, well, what's her lifestyle like? What are, how long has she been doing this? Does she have kids? Is she still working a job or a part-time job? And there's so many different factors that we kind of set unrealistic expectations and have this kind of holy grail standard maybe that we're trying to achieve, yet we don't know how to actually achieve that. And so that's kind of along the mindset piece can also be a big shift is, what does success look like for you? And, for me to be able to take off on a random Wednesday and go into DC and hang out with the hubby, that's cool, that's success, right? And so it's not just about the dollar signs or the house or the car or the, whatever. But it's easy to get wrapped up in that. The more people you see online and, or for me, it's people who seem to accidentally succeed. Do you have a friend like that where they're like, oh my gosh, I just sold $5,000 this week. I don't know how that happened. And I'm just thinking I'm going to stab you through my computer. Come over here so I can punch you in the face. Right. Yeah. And, and it's, I love these people, but there's one girl in particular where I'm just what the hell? How did she do this? I tried for months to get my business going, and she just accidentally sells $5,000 on Etsy this week. WTF? Yeah.
And it's true. We play that comparison game. I know I'm guilty of it too, and we all do it, especially in the beginning. And then, we still do it throughout our business, but we tend to realize it a little bit more and try to stop ourselves from getting too wrapped up in it. But it's true. And that comparison game is so dangerous because, you brought up something that's super simple for a lot of people to invest in, which is Facebook ads, because let's face it, they can be as cheap as I think $5 or whatever. Right. And so many people are like, well, I built it. Let me just go run some Facebook ads. I'll just invest, some money into that and they'll all come. And it's because Facebook obviously makes it super easy anyway for you, even if you're not tech savvy, and you can hire somebody and all that. But what drives me crazy, and I still have yet to do a Facebook ad. I know it's coming soon, but I still haven't done one yet. And people are like, well, I'm surprised you haven't, and it's so cheap, you can do it and stuff. And it's like, yeah, I could. And I'm sure it would work because, no offense, but a lot of Facebook ads I see are not that great. Who knows if they,
right?
I don't know if they perform well. Like, that's a whole nother story. But from looks, I'm going to judge the book by the cover, and the Facebook ads I see don't stop me from scrolling,
Yeah.
And so I know that it's going to be coming, but right now that's not where my mind is at. That's not where I am trying to focus. My focus is building up my businesses, because I got the consulting business and then I have the Stupid Easy business. And so my mind is there with building those and really being able to take that time and soak it up where I can engage with the customers, engage with the potential customers, and really think like them and seeing what they want and what they need to build it into my businesses. So that way it's better for them later. And then if I need to, I'll run some ads. But ideally, going back to like what you were saying too, with word of mouth, like we forget that there's word of mouth marketing is still the number one form of marketing. And it's the best marketing, yet no one ever really talks about it anymore because they're all about the Facebook ads and the Instagram ads and the LinkedIn ads and, all these things. And it's like, okay, but those all cost money, and you have to typically hire someone to do that because the average user doesn't want to learn how to really do it. So it's like, why do we jump to that automatically when we could easily have the word of mouth marketing if we wanted to invest the time versus the money to really understand our customers and ask people questions and really have that engagement, right? Because that's really what it's about. It's having that engagement and really focusing on the few people that you have versus the many people that might show up.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Well, and there, when it comes to like list building, lead generation, you really have to be at a certain point in business when that's actually really useful.
Yes.
Whereas in your first few years, like that's not what you need to be focusing on. Like you need to like validate your idea and get your first couple of clients, right? And then you really need to hone in on your marketing and sales, your systems, your processes, what it is that you are selling and how you're selling it. And then once you've got like that shit all together, then you can go on to lead generation. But we kind of try and jump over some steps and go straight into the Facebook ads or these raffles or these, whatever we're going to do to try and like generate massive traffic.
Right.
And we're not really set up and prepared for it. And so when it comes, if you can't convert it, if you don't have like the mindset, the confidence to be able to convert and to sell, then you're spending all this time and money now, and you're not going to make anything on the back end, which I'm totally guilty of myself too. I set up a funnel. I was about 6 months in business, but I felt like, okay, well, I'm working with people. I need to be 2 steps ahead of them, which means I have to work with people who have been in business less than 6 months. And I had this weird mentality of like, no, I can't help people who have been in business longer than me. I have to be ahead of them. And if they've been in business longer, I'm not ahead, right? So there was kind of this flaw that in terms of how I was thinking. So as I was attracting all of these people, they weren't all the right fit, and it wasn't all the right industry or they sometimes product-based businesses instead of service.
Yes.
And so it's like, you can build your list, but if your sales are still zero, that really, really sucks. Like You're still not going anywhere. And so you really have to have all of these kind of foundational pieces together before you even go that route, or, before you start running webinars and before you start doing these other things. And, and they're all great. There's a time and a place, I think, for everything. But sometimes we're like that, 10-year-old kid that's, wants to be 16 and be able to drive, and we just aren't there yet.
It's so true. And, and that is a great point, because that ties into what we see online in that comparison game, right? We see everyone talking about how much money they made for doing a launch. That's a big one right now, is launching. Yeah. And the email list that they've grown, and that you got to have the email list. And, I get the email list. It's I totally understand why you need an email list, because those are that's technically the only way that you have direct access to people who are interested in you versus like having followers on social media. So I get that part. The part though, like you were just mentioning, that is difficult to deal with is that as you look at your lists, you see that there's 1, 5, 50, 100 maybe people on there, but no one's buying. And then you're like, well, I'm trying everything for my email list, and these people have 5,000 on their email list. Like, how do I get this? And it's just like, okay, those 1, 5, 50, 100 people on your list, that's the ones that you have to engage with. And if they engage with you, then they're solid. If they don't, then you need to weed them out, and you need to be okay with having them unsubscribe and removing them. Because again, it's like, I have a big issue with social media following, because it's like everyone's so obsessed with the vanity metrics of how many people can I have follow me. And it's like, it doesn't matter how many people follow you, because if no one's engaging or buying your product or sharing your information, then it means nothing. So
right, exactly.
It's just crazy to me. And so, you know, it just gets really obnoxious with all the numbers and trying to catch up with everything, when we can just sit back. If we can just sit back and breathe for a second and realize we have to take it slow, and like you said, just really focus in on the proper steps, then we can make it work and be consistent.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I think something that people might not kind of think about or might overlook is that they can get in front of other people's audiences by like kind of what online they call joint ventures. It's not like a true business joint venture. It's more of this online world joint venture where you maybe send an email on behalf of someone else, or you do a webinar for someone else's audience, or, you know, you can kind of get in front of this different realm, and it gives you more exposure. And that's a great way to where you don't have to have a massive list. You can get in front of other people's audience very easily. And as long as they're the right kind of, you know, target, to where they're the types of people who, you know, want what you have to sell. If you solve a problem and they have a need for you, then you could be a very awesome fit. So that's a whole different strategy. And it's definitely something that, like, no matter what you pick, you have to go all in. I think we kind of dip our toes in, and we're kind of like, let me try this today. And even if it doesn't work, and we're like, oh, Facebook ads, they don't work. Or I tried it and it did not work. And you tried it for all of 3 days, and then you got rejected or something, and, you know, you take it personally, and then you don't want to try it again, right? And, you know, totally guilty of doing that too. I used to take things very, very personally. I used to be afraid of, you know, hearing no, or feeling rejected, or feeling like I was too expensive, or, you know, whatever. But, you know, it's something where, like, you have to go all in. You have to double down. Just pick one strategy, one marketing effort, one social media platform, and just go all in on it. You know, don't be afraid. Like, put all your eggs in that one basket. It's okay. I know it sounds contradictory to, like, a lot of what we've heard. And a lot of us who might be kind of risk averse at times, we don't like the idea of going all in on one. But when we don't go all in, then we set ourselves up to fail, because we're already prepping ourselves to not get our hopes up. We're already expecting to not fully succeed, and then it's kind of that self-fulfilling prophecy. So yeah, that's something that you know, pick one, right? Like, find one thing that feels really good, feels really awesome to you, feels light and easy and fun, and go for that. That's always what I recommend.
Yeah, you know, and that's funny that you mentioned that, because I was talking to, I think I did a Facebook Live on this or something a couple weeks ago, but, you know, Facebook's my jam. I like that because of the fact that I can share content. I can share other people's work with my audience. I can shout people out, you know, whereas Instagram, it's not easy to do, and you can't share links and all that stuff. And for me, I always say teamwork equals success. And I'm all about us working together to really be able to get to the next level for all of us, you know. And having Facebook around, I was talking about Facebook pages, business pages to my audience. And, you know, you could be on whatever social media platform works for you, and you got to see where your audience is at. However, at the end of the day, love it or hate it, Facebook's still number one. And so if you're not on Facebook, then you're missing a huge opportunity there. And, you know, and it does suck because the Facebook pages, unless you pay, the Facebook pages kind of stay pretty dead in terms of engagement. But what I've been really encouraging people to do is to turn on their reviews tab for their Facebook page and get people to submit reviews based off of the work that they've done. So for instance, like whether you're doing work for free or getting paid for it, having that social proof, that testimonial, that review from an actual person is key. And so Facebook has made it so easy that once you turn on that tab, it literally gives you a web address. You can just, you know, it's facebook.com and then your page name and then reviews. And you can literally give that to people in an email. You can post it on your website. Like on my website, I have a thing that says reviews. If you want to see more, click here. It takes you straight to that page so that if you're already on Facebook, it takes you a few seconds to give a rating and write a little review. And then bam, there's social proof that I am who I say I am and that I can do what I say I can do and that I'm good at it, you know?
Exactly.
And that's what I try to encourage people to do more of because of the fact like they need that. And, you know, a lot of people get it, but then they also worry about the bad reviews. And it's like, you know, if we worry about the bad reviews, then we're never going to get anywhere. We have to just let that go. And if they're really bad, we can report them. But, you know, people are smart enough to figure out when a bad review is really just somebody being obnoxious or when it's
a bully.
Yeah. Exactly. Like, we're pretty smart to figure out the trolls on social media now. So, you know, I try to remind people like, don't let that hold you back from all the great comments that are waiting for you. I mean, some of the things I see that people have left me for reviews, I'm like, I didn't even know. Like, and some will leave a review that I haven't even worked with yet. They've just read my post, or they've listened to my podcast, or they've seen me on other people's, you know, news feeds or whatever. Right. I'm like blown away because I didn't know. But the fact that I gave them the option to let me know is huge. And it motivates and inspires me to do more. So even if I'm not getting paid necessarily in that moment, I have something now that's a reward that can keep me going because I know my work is being seen and it's changing people.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And, you know, and that makes for a killer sales page. Just testimonials like that. That's all you need. You don't need these long, massive lists of, you know, professionally written copywriting and all this fancy design and, you know, these, you know, tens of thousands of dollars worth of video and editing and lighting and smoke machines. Like, we don't need all of this kind of fluff and stuff. People want results and they just want to know what it's like to work with you. And so if you can give them a little snippet and you can see that, I mean, for anybody who's working on any kind of sales page or things like that, include testimonials, definitely. And, you know, you don't really need much more than that. People just need to understand, like, what was it like before you? What is it like after? What was hell like before you started working with them? And then what's this new heaven that you're in? And that's really, because that's what people want. They want that end result. They don't necessarily care about all of the steps in between as much. We just want that end desire.
It is so true. And that is such a great point because we get so caught up in all of that other stuff that we forget that nobody cares about that. And it is so simple. I mean, I know at the beginning, you know, my grammar's not the best. So I know that at the beginning I ended up, I got a really good deal, but I did have pay somebody to do some copywriting for me. And, you know, it was fine, but I ended up changing a lot of it. And actually now I don't think any of it I use.
So
I was really mad at myself for doing that because I'm very, you know, I watch where I spend my money and stuff, but you know, you live and learn. And it's funny because I'm a researcher and I love to be able to just see what's going on. I like to, even if I'm not going to do it, I just still like to know about it and see how it works. And I had one friend who is helping do some trainings on copywriting, and literally the first lesson, it was an hour lesson, so it was quite long, but a couple points that I picked up from it, I was like off and running and fixing my homepage, and
Yeah.
it totally made a huge difference going from the I's and the we's to just you. And I totally
Yeah, right.
changed the homepage to the you. It's all about you, not me, but you.
Yeah.
And it read so much better, and it was so clean that it was just like, wow, that was made all the difference. And
Yeah.
it was just really cool.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. And sometimes it's just those little tweaks. I think that it's really these small little shifts that
Yeah.
end up making the big, massive changes in our business. But really, we just need these little shifts left or right. We don't need big left and right hand turns. We just need to we're kind of like that airplane, right? We just go 1 or 2 degrees up, 1 or 2 degrees down. We're not like dive bombing.
Right.
Um, it's just tweaking it, and it's not always going back and constantly editing and constantly doing this. You do have to let it live for a moment. But yeah, just some of these simple little kind of changes that will really make a big difference. And then, same thing with like your time and productivity, just implementing slightly different systems can make a big difference. Or systems in your personal life, because business and personal are interwoven. They're all like, they're one and the same. You really can't take one out of the other. And I think that's something we really embraced in kind of this online business culture that's a little bit different from corporate America.
Yeah.
Is how can we weave that personal into it, and how can we keep it still professional, but still very unique and very, very much our own.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And so when it comes to how do clients find you, and what do they come to you primarily for?
So I would say a lot came from, I did webinars originally, were kind of how I like, did my marketing in the beginning. It was webinars and Facebook ads. And I found that while interaction was pretty good, attendance wasn't bad, I didn't get the best response from just Facebook ads. It was actually getting in front of other people's audiences. So it was doing webinars for like kind of cross promotions, doing webinars for others, and then they could do a webinar for my audience, that sort of thing. So it might be complementary services, like it might be copywriting, or something more along graphics or web design, or maybe we just have slightly different kind of business and focuses. But that's been a lot of it has been through other people, other connections, and then ads have been kind of a decent one for me. So I know I kind of talk down about ads sometimes, but when this was like, let's see, last year and a half ago, when I was really getting started, and I felt the pressure. And then a lot of clients came just from personal network too, of like just kind of communicating what I do and who I do it for. And so it's come from just other people that I know. It's like, oh, my aunt has started her own business, and then she's got a friend who's she's launched a new app and she needs some marketing help with that. Oh, and then she's got this other friend. And so it's a lot that's still very much kind of that networking, word of mouth.
Yeah.
And so unfortunately, I didn't grow up in one. I've lived all over the world. I've moved 15 times in the last 15 years. So it's something where I don't really have a good local network established yet. That's one thing I'm looking forward to now, is to go to some of those like local meetups and hangouts and networking events. And it's going to be picking and choosing and being very strategic with ones that I go to, because networking just kind of gives me the heebie-jeebies.
Oh, for sure.
You kind of like want to vomit a little in your mouth, and you're like, oh. But like, again, how can you make it fun? How can you make it a game? Like how, if I turn it into a game of like, how many people can I get to know and like get them to take a selfie with me? It's like, what can you do that's one going to help me establish rapport, but it's also going to help me to remember faces and names and like contacts. And I'm big with really developing good networks. That way, if I can't help somebody, I can always refer them out. That's always what I want. I'm not going to try and sell you a service that you're not ready for, but I want to know like 1,000 people that I could refer you to, depending on what you need. And I found that it has been really beneficial as well.
That's awesome. That's what I'm about too. So funny. I had one client, well, potential client. We got on the phone and we were talking, and she needed a website, and it was going to require a heavy duty shopping cart. That is totally outside my lane. Like, I'm all about building
Yeah.
websites. I'm not a coder, but I can do them. And the shopping cart though adds a whole nother level that I don't want to touch. If it's a simple digital products, no problem. I can get you covered, but when it comes to a full on shopping cart and stuff, that's not my area of expertise. So I told her, I said, I would love to help, because she really wanted to work with me. And I was like, I would love to work with you, but I'm going to have to recommend you check out so-and-so because they are a better suit for this project. And, at first she was like, okay. Why are you recommending me to somebody else though? That's weird. Like,
yeah.
Am I a bad client or what? And it's like, no. Quite the opposite. I'm like, this is how I work. Like, if I feel like you are better suited for somebody else, I'm going to recommend them. Not because I don't want to work with you or that you're not a good client. It's because I feel like that's a better match, and I'm not in it to be me all the time. Like, I want to be able to make sure that you get what you need, not what I need. So if it works for us, great. But if not, I'm going to try to refer you to somebody that I know, because I want to be able to hand you off to somebody that at least has a recommendation versus just blindly looking for somebody and having a bad experience.
Yeah, exactly. And I always look for referrals, no matter what I'm doing. If I'm looking for like a mechanic or a doctor, like a dentist, like it doesn't matter what, I'm always looking at who do people know, who have they gone to, who do they trust? And, because people do have bad experiences, and there have been times where people do get kind of screwed over, and it's really sad that it still happens online, happens in person,
online,
and it's just, it can be frustrating. And so I know I always look for referrals. And if somebody is going to have the integrity with me to do that and to say, you know what, I'm not the best fit for you, and they aren't all about just taking my money, they really just want me to get the result, I really respect them. And even if I don't work with them, now I'm thinking about, okay, well, who can I refer them to then in the future? Like, what, if I'm not the right client, maybe I do know the right client. Or I'll share and I'll tag people in Facebook comments or posts and be like, oh, Autumn is awesome. She's amazing. Like, blah, blah, blah. She helped with this issue. And she gave me free advice. Like, that was all. I didn't pay her for anything, but I'm going to refer her just because of the way that she conducts her business. And
exactly.
We really have to keep in mind, especially when we're kind of the face and we are the business, whether it's in our name, if the name is our business, or something else, we have to remember that we are carrying on that reputation.
Yes, big time. And that's the biggest takeaway, right? Is that people are investing in us and our reputation. It doesn't matter how good our products are, how good the service that we provide. I mean, it does, but they're investing in us based off of our reputation. So we have to live up to that, and we have to make sure that we're providing the best experience we can. And if we aren't able to work with them, being able to hopefully refer them to somebody who can.
Right. Yeah.
I love it. Let me ask you, what before I let you go, what's some key advice, just one thing that you would recommend to new entrepreneurs or those just thinking about starting out? Like, where should they start? What should they think about?
Yeah. So I always recommend starting with your ideal client. Who is it, right? And let's go beyond this like paper avatar and the demographics of, oh, her name's Sarah and she lives in New York City and she carries around her puppy in her purse and she likes tennis, and like we kind of go off on these like random tangents of like, maybe even like magazines or TV shows or things, but like, okay, that might be helpful to some extent, but we really want to understand their personality, their character, their attitude, their energy. What do they value? Do they value time or do they value money? Because you're going to have different people wanting different products and services. Like, somebody who really values their time is not going to buy your DIY branding course. They're not. Like, they would much rather pay a premium and have somebody do it for them. Or they would be like me, where I'm like, design challenged, I'm artistically challenged, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I do not want to deal with this. I need somebody else to do it. I'm far happier paying somebody else than trying to DIY it myself. And so I really suggest that you really go dive deep into who is this person? For me, as a coach, I look at, is the client coachable? Do they take responsibility for their actions? Are
Yeah.
they aware of what's expected of them? What are their expectations of me? Are they willing to do the work? And I look for some of these more characteristics of the person, and not so much these blanket, oh, well, she's 25 to 55 and she lives here and she makes this much money. It's very specific. And I'm going even deeper into, like, beyond just coaches that I want to like health and fitness coaches. How can I dive even deeper into one specific niche and really like hang my hat on something? Like, I want to be known for something. What is it? And I think that's something that we all need to think about is, what do you want to be known for, and where can you hang your hat? And don't be afraid of pushing people away, because if you aren't pushing them away and you aren't repelling some people, then you're not going to be attracting either, because you have to do simultaneously. You have to do both. And so it's going to be an attract on one hand and a repel. And so don't be afraid to do that. Don't be afraid of losing out on money. I know you can help these other people. Like, it's okay, but just focus on one specific target group with one problem, and you have one solution. There might be multiple ways they can work with you, but in the end, they essentially get one kind of solution, one end result. And what is that one, right? Like, how can we boil it down to the one most important thing? Do they want to lose 20 pounds? Do they want to have consistent clients? They want to get their first clients, right? There's kind of a variety of different ways that you can phrase it, but really get focused on that, because you can't do anything else if you don't get that foundation done. And I've done different programs and courses and masterminds, and like I did kind of like a weekend workshop, and the first day I didn't really get a good grasp on who I wanted to work with and what that target like client looked like. And so I felt like the whole second day was a waste, because I didn't have that set foundation and the drive and the purpose of like, yes, this is exactly who I want, and being okay with it. So look at them. Where are they in their journey? Where are they in their life or their business? What have they tried before? What's worked? What hasn't? And it's going to take some time to figure out, and you don't have to necessarily know it all up front in the beginning, but the more you can know and understand, the better you can communicate in a way that's really going to attract those right people, repel the wrong ones, and really create that kind of urgency and that desire to buy, to spend their money with you, because you understand their problem so well that you must have the solution. So that's kind of my best tip for anyone listening, is always to have that ideal client in mind and really go deep and do what you can to understand them better.
I love it. And that was perfect. And that is exactly how everything works. I mean, you can take that from starting your business to creating a product, to your services, to a course. I mean, all of that, it's what's the problem and what's the solution you're going to provide. And sometimes it takes us longer to figure that out, because, I am very creative and I have so many things that I can do, but I always have to remind myself, should I be doing those? And really being asked of me. So again, making that time to have that downtime where you can listen and really listen to what people are asking for and what they're telling you online and in person, so that you can see, okay, is that what I really like to do? And am I really actually doing that? Or how can I start doing that? So that's great advice.
Just know that it's all a learning lesson, right? Every step you take is putting you on in the right direction, and you just got to keep going forward. But yeah, this has been a blast. Thanks so much for having me on.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Dive deeper into the conversation with this guest as well as others by going to yes-to-entrepreneurship.com/podcast. Over there, you will find a list of all the previous episodes and bonus material for each guest. I hope that you'll continue to share out this podcast, and please be sure to leave a review in iTunes and subscribe so that way others can discover this show and be able to realize that they are not alone and that they have somebody they can count on to provide value and motivate and inspire them to keep moving forward. Together, we can make it happen. And like I always say, teamwork equals success. So go out there and do something great, because why not?